Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your host today, Nathaniel. We are really privileged to have Jocelyn Bystrom here, who is had quite an amazing journey. Reading her bio, I'm really excited to hear about the Thrive Together network that you've been putting together, Jocelyn, and the really significant journey that you've been on through your own health journey. My understanding is that you're helping people who have gone through some pretty complex medical diagnoses to navigate that, and you have over 25 years experience. You yourself were telling me before we got on you've been diagnosed with functional neurological disorder. I'd like to know more about what that is and have more awareness out there. I mean, I feel like this is really an important topic, that community that brings people into that place of wholeness and wellness by navigating some of this journey. So you're a published author, you hold all kinds of workshops. I really feel honored to have you here on the show, and I'd just like to invite you to share more about yourself and what is behind your passion. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all good.
It's an honor to be here, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity to spread the word about functional neurologic disorder, and more than that, to be able to reach those people who might be struggling in silence with undiagnosed or complex physical health challenges,
Hmm.
who don't have the support or don't have the skill or the self-advocacy to reach out and get the support that they deserve and that they require. And
Hmm.
so when I was going through the process of 7 years of diagnostic intervention, and they were saying it might be MS, it might be Parkinson's, it might be brain cancer, it might be, and the not knowing why your brain is doing these unexpected things is really disconcerting, and it can make you feel incredibly alone with the struggle when doctors really don't have answers for you as they try to rule out all kinds of things, but they're not telling you what is going on at the same
Hmm.
time. So it can be very challenging in that way. Now, functional neurologic disorder, you asked what that is. It's essentially when the brain has neuroplasticity, and we know that in the brain, for example, after a stroke, that someone can learn to walk again or speak again. And in that same way, what happens here is that the brain sends mixed up messages to the body, which cause and initiate a new pattern in the body, which might be unexpected, might be
Hmm.
a migraine, it might be a myoclonic jerk, it might be a non-epileptic seizure. There are every person, an individual that's diagnosed with functional neurologic disorder has a very unique experience.
Hmm.
I can only speak to my experience. However, what I think is the common thread for everyone who kind of goes through the diagnostic process is it takes a very long time, as it's a rule in diagnosis rather than a rule out diagnosis, which makes it much more difficult for specialists to come to that conclusion. But the exciting part is that it is so debilitating. However, there's hope, and you can be well if you realize, I'm motivated to be well, and I believe that everyone is motivated to
Hmm.
be well, especially when you're struggling with things that you don't understand. And having that conversation open up with reduced stigma around what it is and what it isn't is really critical.
Yeah, I can hear you, and the pain that a lot of people would go through not knowing and having all of these symptoms. And I could see why it is a difficult thing to diagnose just from the complexity, but also, like you said, it's unique case by case. So
Exactly.
I can see your passion as an advocate for this. I mean, you've written a book I can see in your background, and you've created a network to help people. So let us know about that and what is your mission here with
All right.
this?
Well, thanks. I'd appreciate that. I think what really deeply resonates with me is that when I was going through that period in time between 2014 and 2021, when I finally got a diagnosis, was that I was very alone in it. I didn't have a sense of community. When someone diagnoses with you with cancer, people know how to wrap their arms around you. And when you have a condition that is at the intersections of neurology and psychiatry, and you don't yet know it, it's really difficult to find your people and your support network. And so the passion that I have is coming out of in 2020 and 2021, I was incredibly incapacitated. I was having incredible 8 to 10 times a day. I was having non-epileptic seizures that could last anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes in length. And it really, I mean, I was unable to work. I was unable to drive. My life as I knew it was essentially over. And it gets very discouraging and very like depressing, really, because you're living in this way that is complex and discouraging because you've lost your independence, you lost whether you have work that you love and you're passionate about. It kind of gets sidelined and derailed because there's not a lot of folks out there that understand what it is and what it isn't. In fact, I'd never heard of it. So it's very interesting to me that as an intelligent, capable person, I can live in a culture and be unaware of the importance of that mind body heart connection, and that there's hope and there's something you can do about it, and we need to be much more proactive and preventative in coming alongside people and supporting them in community so that these things don't exacerbate and get worse. And the big piece of that is that when you don't know and there's no awareness about what this disorder is or what it isn't, there can be lots of folks that look at it and think of what was called conversion disorder in the past, which is not the same thing as functional neurologic disorder. Now we have experts and researchers around the world who are specializing in coming together to create a common language that has less stigma around it. And we know that now there is evidence. There's not testable evidence, but there is very clear evidence that FND is not the person's fault. They haven't done anything to make it happen. There isn't anything specifically for everyone individualized that has FND who has the same symptoms. So it is a difficult rule in diagnosis. Essentially what happens is that, so for example, with me, I started out having myclonic jerks, and it was kind of like I was scared, and my body would, from the trunk, I'd get this sort of shocking impulse. It wasn't painful, but it came very unexpectedly. And initially, I didn't know why this was happening, but then the brain practices it because we're designed with that incredible strength to be resilient and to practice and master skills and to do hard things. And so what happens is the brain sends this mix-up message to the body, which causes a variety of functional symptoms. And then what happens is the brain practices it. So that increases the frequency and the duration and the intensity of that action. So as an example, when I first started having non-epileptic seizures, which I didn't know that they were non-epileptic, they initially diagnosed me with epilepsy, and some people have that as a comorbidity between them. But when we thought that they were epileptic, and I got that call in 2020 while I was working full time saying, Jocelyn, a team of neurologists have put our heads together on this, and what we've decided is that you are there's a severe risk that you are going to experience a significant neurological event. So we would like you to stop driving. We would like you to stop working. We would like you to, essentially stop everything that brings you joy. That's the way it felt in my body to hear that message.
Yeah.
And as a career, I am an educator and very proud of that, and a counselor, and I have skill and a love and passion for the gifted education community as a specialist in that area in social emotional intelligence. And all of a sudden that was completely like chopped off, knocked down at the knees. And so it's very disheartening to have something that's going on that you know nothing about what it is, why it's happening, or whether it is life-threatening or terminal. Like you have no idea. So in that in itself causes an elevated state of hyperarousal in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And when the body gets in that state, then you're in an elevated state where you're flee, fright, fight, fright, flee, or fawn. And so because of that, it is your body practices and masters it and wants to get really, really good at this new functional symptom that it starts choosing to, you get them mixed up messages going through the neural pathways.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got really good at having seizures. I have that kind of love of learning and love of mastering skills, and my very intelligent brain was trying to keep me safe and protecting me by continuing to get really good at these things. And so by 2021, I was having so many seizures and so much. I was having migraines all day long. I'd wake with them. Anytime I fell asleep, I would have a seizure. If I walked for more than 5 or 6 minutes, I'd have a seizure. So life ended up just sort of on the deck in a chair, kind of just waiting for the next event. And so learning as I did when I ended up in the seizures investigation unit in 2021, that I had this thing called FND, and I was like, wait, what's FND? I wanted to become really knowledgeable about what ailed me and figure out why this was occurring. And if there was anything I could do, I was more than motivated to be well. I wanted to be around for our kids' weddings or to, meet a grandchild if that was, the blessing for me. And I have beautiful relationships, and I wanted it all. I wanted to live. And it's funny that throughout the diagnostic process, the most common question I was asked was, are you feeling suicidal? Have you given up hope?
Mm-hmm.
Are you discouraged to that nth degree? And I was in an incredibly dark place, not knowing, but knowing sparked a lot of hope. And when my doctor Sadhu said to me in the seizures investigation unit, um, there's hope, you can be well. It's going to be hard work and it's going to take time, but you can be well. I was like, I was ready to cling on to that. So I just want to share that so that people don't need to struggle in silence as I was. So I'm one step ahead of many folks with FND in that I've done the work. I continue to do the work because there's no cure and there's no magic pill for FND.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, um, my heart goes out to you and folks who are dealing with this challenge, and for those who are still maybe having symptoms who don't know, I can see that you're a light and letting people know, bringing more awareness to something that I had not heard of before. I also find I can hear the personal struggle that it goes that you've gone through. Um, and I can also look at this from a bigger picture and see that, this must be helping the advancement of understanding of what neuroplasticity is. I mean, just like your really articulate way of talking about how your brain was really good at learning how to have
Mhm.
non-epileptic seizures. That's a very interesting way of looking at learning, and so I'd imagine in the research that there's probably some gifts to come into our awareness of how our nervous systems adapt and to find some potential breakthroughs. I could see that. And so I appreciate you being an advocate for that. And also, I mean, Jocelyn, I think one of the most important things in our current age, I like to think of this age, everyone's, focusing on the technological aspect, AI and all this, but I really do feel from a holistic framework that we are in an age of transformation. We've gone beyond the age of information. We've had overload of information, but now it's like effectively, implementing what we know. How do we elevate health? How do we elevate consciousness? How do we, really tap into what's potentially available for us as a species? And I think one of the most important and valuable things in that you mentioned too is doing the work, which thank you for doing the work, because sometimes people go into hopelessness when, faced with some kind of challenges. So thank you for that. And also thank you for community. I feel like community is like the number one thing that people are yearning for when they're scrolling, when they're feeling lost in isolation, and you've created a Thrive Together network. So how are you doing that, and what is your experience with that?
So how am I doing that? Last year, I resigned from a career that I absolutely loved and just felt so passionate about this work in serving others, in creating these small, safe cohorts where people can show up imperfectly perfect and
Mm,
be confident that they'll be heard and seen and witnessed
mm,
in telling our stories and sharing our stories. We invite that opportunity to have that tough stuff discharged.
mm,
And so Thrive Together community is and always will be a free community for anyone to access. Currently, it's small because we're new and we're growing.
mhm,
We just launched in August 2025.
mm,
But the other unique offering here is that I offer these 12-week workshops. And so the cool thing is that the folks that I started with, I taught a program for BC Brain Wellness Program, which I would give a huge shout out to because they were part of my healing journey when I was struggling. Any brain health condition, if you live in British Columbia, you can access these incredible free programs on Zoom.
mm,
Art from the heart and things that help you discharge all of these things as you navigate a new or challenging diagnosis. So Thrive Together Network is all about um, inviting people who are motivated to thrive. Like people want to be well and get discouraged when they're not in community, and relationships are everything.
mhm,
So once a week, 90 minutes, these small cohorts of up to 12 people come together. They may have different neurological or slightly different diagnosis. I want to offer cohorts for, FND specifically, but I also have a cohort of people they have neurological challenges or they have chronic pain or chronic health conditions. And each week we show up for each other. We learn together. I facilitate and teach DBT skills, which are just super practical skills to help people manage distress tolerance and to manage interpersonal relationships, because all of those skills that we may or may not have learned growing up are all skills that support us in relationship.
mhm,
And so many folks are at home navigating chronic health, pain, or a new diagnosis without that support that you need. We are designed to be in community. That really
mhm,
resonated with me when you articulated that.
mhm,
And it's so exciting because I taught this specific workshop for 2 years for the BC Brain Health, and I thought, no, this is time now for me to launch out on my own.
mhm,
And so from September to November, I offered actually a free cohort for anyone who was just motivated and kind of got myself all organized. And it was so exciting that the endorsements that came out of that were all word of mouth. Like people were just so excited to
beautiful.
share the importance of like, this is my favorite day of the week, and I don't miss
Mhm,
this because this
beautiful.
is the time I get to have people listen and I get to be heard and felt and encouraged and inspired in a really beautiful way that feels safe.
Mm,
And so it's exciting to have one full cohort, and I'm looking forward to having more. I want to offer also cohorts for individuals who are supporting others
mm,
with difficult health. I was my mom's care partner through her 4-year dementia journey. And so
mm.
care partners need that support and resilience
Yeah.
as well. Family members, I've had lots of therapy to navigate my own brain health, and my family also need that support around how to navigate. You're doing all of these things as a care partner and you're resilient and you love them and you want to do it, but sometimes it gets resentful. And it's
Mm,
nice to have that small cohort of people where you can show up and say, I'm having a really hard day.
mm,
I love this person to the ends of the earth, and yet these are the things I'm managing, like layers of grief or seeing them in pain. And so it's really lovely to have these small cohorts, and participants so far have really been encouraged. And honestly, it's an encouragement for me as well,
mm,
because I think these people don't need to be struggling in silence. So between the free community and the 12-week workshop offerings, which really provide that community, like provide relationships. And sometimes it's easier to be showing up in community without those people you want to feel most vulnerable with in your family.
Mm.
It's nice to have a group, or if you're someone living alone, it's nice to have that day, that connection with each other. And then they're invited to participate in the community at their leisure in the free community as well.
That's amazing. I really do hear you. I feel like community is just so essential. And Lightheart Vision really is inspired. Well, it's a culmination of both of our life's work, but also like our quest actually led us to BC of all places. I like calling BC beautiful Cascadia with all the waterfalls and everything there. And I grew up in Alberta and we used to vacation in BC. And you talked about that connection to people, connection to the land. Our daughter was born on Vancouver Island. We had a natural home birth, and seeing her emerge this new life. I spoke a lot, in my background as an educator in Indigenous wellness circles, um, about how we are all miracles. Like life is a miracle. I mean, you talking about, brain plasticity and stuff. Like even this, we didn't even have some of these deeper understandings of our own capacity as a species, even just 20 some odd years ago. There wasn't talk of plasticity. It was talk of, you have a certain amount of brain cells, and if you hit your head, you're going to lose some, and that's,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I think I mean, our comprehension of the innate complexity and the miraculous nature of life continues to grow through our scientific endeavors and our awakening. But so I would talk about the miraculous, but then actually witnessing our daughter being born, it reminded me how we are all born of this miraculous encounter. Julie and I talked a lot about like, how are we going to give her the best quality of life so that she can express her unique purpose and really grow and thrive in this world. So I love that World Thrive Together network, because I really do believe that it's through community. They say it takes a village. I really do believe that, we need to come together in circle. Leadership is important, and thank you for being a leader. And we have roles to play as leaders, but really at the end of the day, it's everyone gathering together and forming that grassroots network that's going to allow the flourishing of us all rising into a much healthier expression. So, all that
Yeah.
to say, yeah, we're all about building conscious bridges between communities. So I would love to explore more how we can support you, Jocelyn. And I want to invite you also to our school community. I don't know if you've been on the school network, but their mission is to bring community to 1 billion people. And currently there's about 20 million people on their network. But I want to tell you about it because I feel like it's important for you to at least check it out. And you're welcome to come to our free community because there are some people I want to connect you with, like Alex Crowther, who was on here. He's a specialist. He's dealt with chronic pain his whole life. So when you started talking about that, I feel like he has like a very high level CEO experience and stuff, and he's on a mission to uh, help people with chronic pain worldwide. And there's some other folks that I feel like who have been on the show that I'd like to network with you because
Okay.
it's like I really do believe that, teamwork makes the dream work. And on what I love about school is that, and I'm not paid or anything by school. This was a Christmas present for my wife because she sees how much I love it. And I'm not an online guy. Like I'm a nature guy. If you saw me in my off time, I'm
Yeah.
barefoot in the woods. I love being around, just immersed in nature.
That's
Um,
where that's my safe, happy space to reconnect with myself spiritually and pray my way around the
mm.
forest with my fur buddy.
Oh yeah, it's so important, eh?
And I think when we're going through grief or loss, it's critically important to understand that there's so many layers to it.
Mm,
And often we give people a lot of beautiful space when they're grieving after a death. But there are so many other things that we grieve.
mm,
We grieve relationships that are lost. We grieve people that move away. We grieve, like for me, I grieved the loss of work, of
mm.
my career,
Yeah.
of something I was really passionate about. And So to be able to be invited into those conversations, those hard conversations, is a really huge gift to folks, to have a space to say,
Yeah.
this is super hard, and to really work on creating psychologically safe workplaces for people who are returning to work with neurological conditions, with complex medical health, and to be an advocate in that space is super important. So I really appreciate the idea of, networking and referral, because word of mouth is what is going to engage folks into this connection and community where we get to show up for one another and witness each other's stories so that healing can happen.
Yeah. And a counselor told me this once, and it's really stuck with me on that, just on that notion of healing. He said, Nathaniel, after healing is growth. And I feel like you're an embodiment of that, Jocelyn. Like you've done your work, you've gone through the healing process. It's an ongoing practice, I see, but also you've grown into this new purpose of now helping others. And I really feel like contribution is one of the ways that really fulfills us in our life, because you're now being a blessing to those that you're touching and helping them see that there is another there's another shore to explore, and from there, who knows what purpose they will also flourish into and then impact others. So it's really this igniting that happens, I believe, when we allow ourselves to shine our light and be witnessed by others in community. It allows us all to thrive and flourish.
When we show up with curiosity and without judgment, we are poised to connect at a much deeper, more authentic level, for sure.
Mm.
That's absolutely, that's the critical layer. And when you spoke a moment ago, you said you've been through the healing, or you made a comment that really piqued my wait a minute. So the curious thing is that we are lifelong learners, and
Mhm.
I will continually be on that learning curve and
Mhm.
that healing curve, because I choose to navigate to well-being. It's not to say I have no seizures now. Functional neurologic disorder is something that it can relapse. And
Yeah.
essentially, one of the things that I love to share with people is that these practical DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy skills that I teach and facilitate people learning those practical skills that can be offered every day in our lives, because they're simple and they're manageable steps to take, small steps in the right direction
Mhm.
that will serve our well-being, because many of us have established patterns through our childhood or through
Mhm.
our young adulthood, where those patterns are so ingrained. And we can give thanks that our brains had those beautiful patterns that helped support us to manage really difficult things. However, they may not be serving us any longer, and we need to be able to recognize and identify what those patterns are and
Mhm.
move through that, gracefully, and um, by prioritizing all the aspects of our health. We teach our kids to brush their hair and wash their faces and take care of the outside of their body, but we
Mhm.
take very little time to nurture the spiritual side or the
Mhm.
emotional side, or to build those skills in emotional intelligence or interpersonal effectiveness,
Mhm.
and to manage the tough stuff. And so
Yeah.
it's interesting, because the what comes to mind for me is that I I am an incredible introvert, and I'm very private about my
Mm.
life. And so choosing to write initially was not ever about writing a book.
Mm.
I took a class through the BC Brain Health program, um, which I'm so grateful for again, called Writing for Chronic Health.
Mm.
And just through that, starting that process, like, I have taught children and students to write and enjoy reading for years,
Mm.
and yet I had never really used that as a tool. And so I love being able to write and create and paint to discharge those hard things.
Mm.
I can remember a time when I was just surviving from seizure to seizure, and I would get paint and put it on my hands, and I would just like scrape my fingers through it. Like, it was
Mm.
just a matter of just like, oh, this is how awful this is right now, but it will shift. And I
Mm.
And I love the word that you used earlier, like it is all about the transformation that is possible. We can spark that hope when we share information and knowledge and connection in community.
Mm.
Sure.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much beauty in what you said there, Jocelyn. And I feel like I have a lot to share that could probably be, in 10 conversations with you.
Well, I'd love to
Um,
follow up anytime.
Sure. Yeah, well, we still have some time, so I could share a few things that I feel might benefit your mission. Like, and I really appreciate they brought in the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, and the physical. My background is in Indigenous wellness addictions prevention, and using the medicine wheel, I feel is a very powerful tool, and it's universal, right? Because, whereas in the West we tend to fixate on the mental and the physical, you're right. We tend to, if anything, suppress the emotional, and then we have all kinds of dogmatic beliefs about what the spiritual is instead of recognizing that it's just about our beingness. It's just about that wholeness that you talk about that we are, that connects us. And I don't think we can really put it into words. We can point at it. I do believe that we can have direct experiences of it. I certainly have myself. Um, However, it's very sometimes difficult to talk about those things. So having spaces like the Thrive Together Network where you can come and express and just be yourself. That's what one of the things I love most about many of the Indigenous circles that I've been in, is this quality of just being. Like, you don't have to put on a show, you don't have to talk, you can just be in silence, you can be. And so really appreciate that. The other thing, and just to give context to what in my contemplation of like healing and then growing, I feel like healing is this natural perfection process that nature is always engaged in. Like the body itself has a level of intelligence that is pretty unfathomable to me. If I cut myself immediately, like, immune response starts, cells start working to heal. It's like, it's so amazing. I don't have any conscious, ability to change that. Maybe at some point, like staying in a certain calm state allows the healing faster. But just to that point, and then growth and growth, I feel, is also like we don't always recognize when we're growing. And like you've probably had moments where you look back at where you've been, you're talking about scratching the paint and that creative expression that you allowed yourself to get, like you were growing through those moments. Now you can look back and now you're creating a community, you're a community builder, you're an author, you're speaking, very articulately about this cutting edge, you know, diagnoses that maybe a lot of us are not aware of. So I think that's amazing. And that's what I mean by there's growth after the healing. Yes, healing is this constant, like nature's always healing, our body's always healing at some level, but then there's the growth beyond it. And the other, and where I'm getting some of this inspiration is actually the foundational principles and knowledge that we've used to build Light Her Vision. It sounds like a religious source, but it is absolutely not. They're called the Christ Letters. And in the Christ Letters, he actually talks about his actual experience of becoming truly enlightened and what happened in the desert. And he talks a lot about healing and health and how he was able to be a conduit for that loving intelligence to flow through him to enable some of the miraculous healings that many people witnessed. For some more scientifically minded people like myself included, it took me actually having some transcendent experiences in my early 20s where I actually witnessed his presence in front of me. And I don't even consider myself a Christian in the traditional sense. I've always just considered myself just a spiritual being who is on my own journey, and I've always felt like I have a purpose. But I believe science is a way that we can articulate the mystical and some of these, miraculous things that we have a very hard time understanding. But I'm telling you about the Christ letters, specifically, Jocelyn, because I feel like they're a source of knowledge that may benefit your research as well, and maybe expand some of your awareness of what is possible in terms of healing. So just putting that out there as a seed.
Well, I'd love to jump in there if I could.
Please, yeah.
I think the interesting thing is, um, approaching your big questions. Like I'm a question asker. I have big questions all the time that I'm curious about, and um I can be judgmental. However, I want to show up with curiosity for folks,
Mhm.
and when, so for example, in Thrive Together Network, I am a Christian, and I have had some profound miracles and experienced profound miracles in my life,
Mhm.
and I know that to be a fact. In my book, I offer it up as, I'll share the story. You have the invitation to decide for yourself.
Mhm.
Although I know that science cannot explain what happened in that moment when I got that diagnosis.
Mhm.
It cannot explain that moment when I was so very low in a dark
Mhm.
place, and I had this incredible experience of surrender to God. And when I invite people into that conversation about spirituality, and this is where I've had really significant growth, because previously I always believed it was really respectful to respect everyone's opinion and listen and learn, but never share what I respect or
Mhm.
what I prioritize or what I value. And so I out of respect, I was actually silencing
Mhm.
my own voice. And so I have become a transformed person through this huge experience of pain and agony and discouragement and depression and body chaos. Having a non-epileptic seizure, which I imagine is like, I mean, they feel like regular seizures, so I don't know why we call them non-epileptic. They don't have epileptiform spikes.
Mhm.
But you feel like you've run a marathon at the end of it,
Mhm.
and you literally have like your emotions and your brain and your mind and all of those interconnections. And when we listen to folks like Gabor Mate and Bessel van der Kolk talking about the body keeps score, like it does keep
Mhm.
score. And so as we kind of loop back and think about the fact that our childhood patterns influence our adult patterns. And
Mhm.
as we sit with and resonate and contemplate that our spirituality, whether it takes one form or another, we are all spiritual beings. And
Mhm.
so in Thrive Together Network, as an example, there are different channels and discussion threads. There's one that is for people who are Christians and want to say, hey, I'd like people to pray for me, or
Mhm.
can we talk and join in a Zoom room to talk about this thing related to a Christian faith. There's also another channel, which is, for folks who have a different spiritual practice, or they're using yoga or meditation. Therapeutic yoga has been one of the most powerful things for
Mhm.
me. And there are Christian folks who would say, "Oh, we don't do yoga," but I look at it and say, how can my body become more skilled to be
Mhm.
more congruent with my mind? And I can still give thanks to the one who's created me. I know
Mhm.
to whom I belong, and I know, to whom I answer, and that I am loved.
Mhm.
I don't push that on other people. However, I'm gonna show up for myself in that
Yeah.
way, because every single day that I'm alive now, after that miracle of learning I had FND and what it meant, and that there was hope, I was like, I'm all in here. I want to do this work. And so after taking that writing for chronic health, what I noticed is that this book really flowed through me. It felt very spirit inspired.
Mhm.
I look back and think, wow, I wrote that. and and I'm so private and I'm so introverted. And I was like, the publisher said to me, Jocelyn, are you ready for this? And I was like, no, but I know, and I have this God-given strength to know that if just
Yeah.
one person reads this book and does not have to navigate the tears and the depression and the alone, like the feeling of just being utterly alone and in such a dark place that you want to just give up. If one person gets that spark and that desire to invest in themselves and show up and say, like, I'm here, I've got you, Jocelyn, like for themselves, um because we live in such a culture that is all about perfect bodies and
Mhm.
perfect, showing up perfectly. And I always have considered myself a recovering perfectionist, but it's a journey, and we're
Mhm.
all on the journey. We all have to navigate the hard things. And I just want to invite people into transparent conversations
Yeah.
around those hard things. I actually have inside the community, we have on Thursdays at 11, we have a time where it's just like hard talks, honest conversation. Like,
Mm.
let's just show up and talk
Beautiful.
about what we're managing that's hard.
Yeah.
And we take folks, like I might take a thread from a Mel Robbins podcast, or I might take a thread from a new current book that someone's written, and then we just talk about it as a conversation starter. So
Mhm.
I'm really facilitating the conversation, but I just want to spark conversations. I don't
Mhm.
want people to have to manage all of that alone in their
Yeah.
brain.
I think that is so admirable, Jocelyn, that you have that approach. I think that really is the heart of a true community builder, to just hold space and to facilitate, and at the end of the day, I feel like the truth can be so ineffable that who are we to think as individuals that we have the full comprehension of God, of the creator of the cosmos and the world, and we're just beginning to, I think, I remember being in a philosophy class when I was in grade 11, and one of the students asked this question, just blew my mind. He said, well, we've basically figured out everything. So why do we, still? And I was just like, how do you? Yeah, he had the assumption because we live in, I think, a time of scientific dogma, and I think this materialistic science has become the religion of the time. It's led to atheist or to yeah, like a lot of atheism, a lot of this idea that it's just random, and nothing is of meaning. So it leads to nihilism, that extreme, right? And then some other religions would lead to other extremes. And I feel like the truth has always been a North Star for me. And I've always recognized that life is interconnected, and I think that's the power of community too, is when you have all these multiple perspectives and you're able to have these hard conversations. Like for me, it's actually taken me a couple decades to be public about my experiences because I know that I come in with a bit of an edge. I'm challenging scientific institutions. I'm challenging educational institutions that I feel are suppressing our children's genius. I know that felt like that for me. And I'm also coming in with an edge because the letters do challenge the Christian dogma. But I think that it's all in the spirit of our species awakening. Because he said, too, that we could do these things and greater. And I don't think if he was the only special one that he would deceive us. And we haven't yet really seen that materialize in this world. But I do believe we are in a time of real a great awakening. Almost every indigenous culture talks about this time where we have this choice to make as a species. Do we awaken and return to the harmony of stewardship, of brotherly and sisterly love, and recognize our interconnection and really practice the golden rule? Or do we go more into the diversions and the darkness and that which separates us and keeps us in fear? And I think we can see those dichotomies very present in our society. There are many people who are turning away from traditional media sources, who are turning away from the polarity of political, confrontation, and they are seeking health and community and spiritual connection.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a whole big conversation that I would absolutely love to engage in. Because that's a lengthy one for
Sure,
sure.
sure, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but it's so interesting for me because I just feel like not in my own strength. Like this is coming through me.
Hmm.
And I have such a heart to serve people. When I spoke to my publisher, I said, you have to set the price so that it's accessible for anybody to get it. It's so priced so easily to get because many folks with FND are not working and they don't have large budgets. Many people that need support can't afford to go to the therapists that I had to
Yeah.
$275 an hour to see. That's why I want to give back and I want to serve. I want people to know that post-pandemic, that was a traumatic incident in every individual's life. And that had
Yeah.
impact on our children. It had impact on our relationships. It had impact on our fear. It had impact on every part of our being.
Hmm.
And that's currently stored if we're not discharging it. So
Hmm.
I really want to envision and cultivate sort of a magnetic presence to serve those individuals who are struggling in silence with new or challenging health diagnosis by showing up with,
Hmm.
with my own authenticity and courage and vulnerability. Like I have a tenacity, I have a stick with itness. I used to say to my students, like, let's stick with this. It might be hard, but we've got this. And I love seeing people have those. I've had people that they were feeling so vulnerable they couldn't show up on a Zoom screen,
Hmm.
and I just say, oh, leave your screen off, just listen for until you're ready to turn your screen on. And I love now that I see these people having smiles across their face, and they're like, oh, I can't wait to be here, and oh, I'm so excited to be here today with you, and I feel so connected. And I just like, that is like the greatest blessing, to hear that people are finding relationship and connection and safety in this space.
Hmm.
Because when I heard I had FND, I was like, wait, what? I have what? And it's then that in 2021, when I was kind of tethered to my bed with this new health condition that I knew nothing about, and I was sent home with two websites addresses to learn about it for myself. I'm very grateful and privileged to have had a referral from the seizures investigation unit to a neuropsychiatrist, because that's who's can support you in your brain health in making those changes that you
Hmm.
want to make, so that those patterns that have now established themselves as your new normal. And I mean, everywhere you look, if people with functional neurologic disorder or neurological conditions, they just want their life back.
Hmm.
They just want their normal,
Yeah.
and their new normal is not okay. It's just like, and it's hard to articulate and defend yourself and say, hey, pay attention, this is going on and I need some support. And so humorously, as I sat in the seizures investigation unit in 2021, I had this braid of EEG monitoring all over my head, and I'd call it my brain umbilical cord, and I was attached by my scalp to, so often I had just repetitive EEGs that all showed up abnormal.
Hmm.
And I'm just one chapter ahead in this journey of functional neurologic disorder than people who got their diagnosis today or yesterday. And I have learned how to find and practical tools that have helped me thrive. I've gone from my pre-FND life, where I was a kayaker, and I learned to ride a motorcycle, and I paddled the Nahanni River in the Yukon, and all of those. I had all that adventurous heart,
Hmm.
and then I became this person who sat in a chair waiting for a seizure, and I delivered.
Hmm.
It got delivered. And I couldn't see past where would I ever get to drive again? Would I
Hmm.
ever be able to head into the woods by myself without a life alert button my husband
Hmm.
wanted me to wear, because he wanted me to be safe. He
Yeah.
wanted me to have that beautiful independence of being able to go into the woods alone, but he also wanted to know that if something happened, where I was, wandering off in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And today I belong to a mountaineering club, and I have hiked and summited mountains. And I'm
Amazing.
like, go, we've got this. Like, I'm working on establishing new patterns that are healthy for me, because trauma isn't necessarily what happened to you.
Hmm.
Um, a traumatic incident is what lives inside your body
Hmm.
until it gets discharged. And so, whether you had a dental visit gone wrong, or a bicycle accident and fell off your bike as a kid, or you got a concussion, like, these things change us
Hmm.
unless we can sort of grieve and process loss and change. And so, we need to tell ourselves, like, I've got you.
Hmm.
And we need to look after ourselves and prioritize our own um, all aspects of our health and well-being. So it's like imagining if there were people listening right now, if your listeners were listening in and they have F&D and they might be, I would say, want to say to them, like, imagine stepping back into your joyful life.
Mm.
And imagine having like a partner, a partner that cares about you and connects with you, and a community of folks who are there to inspire you and encourage you when you're low. And or would you like a transformational health coach at your side with, that offers unwavering support? Um, Community. You want to be seen, heard, and believed. So many people like me were not believed along the way. I was told I was lying. I was told all these things. So, with support, we can thrive for sure.
It's a powerful message, and I see your passion and your tenacity, I would say, and I mean that in the most respectful way. I think it's a beautiful quality to have that passion of your heart and to fulfill a mission, especially when it's to bring people together in a way that's going to uplift the whole. So I really appreciate your presence, Jocelyn. I see that you're really I really an advocate and a leader in your space. And I really admire how you've taken some, really great personal challenges and have transformed that into a mission to serve and help others. I think it's really remarkable. So thank you for being you. And I look forward to continuing to get to know you. And like I said, I'm happy to be of service in any way to connect you with other individuals that I feel would complement your mission here. I always like to ask our unique guests who have such unique gifts, their perspective on this question. And maybe in many ways you've already answered this, but if you could speak to everyone on Earth and you had a megaphone and you could talk to everyone and everyone could hear you, what would you like to share with folks?
You don't have to do this alone.
Mhm.
Um, we want to come alongside you. We want to connect. We want to support you with encouragement and inspiration and walk alongside with you to do this in a trauma-informed way. Like, we don't need to do this alone. There is no need to struggle, and it's only our own ego that gets in the way of showing up authentically with vulnerability. Um, so yes, that's what I would shout from the mountaintop is speak up about your grief, speak
Mm,
up about your loss, speak up about the hard things, and find beautiful new ways to discharge that. Like I
mm,
have found painting, and the writing of that book that flowed through me. Like I never knew that that was an opportunity to use my creativity
mm.
to share, but also to heal.
Yeah. You remind me of that the sentiment. I'm not sure where the quote comes from, but shared sadness is dissolved and shared joy is amplified.
Ooh, I
So
love that.
yeah, and so I mean for folks listening who are looking for that kind of support, check out the Thrive Together Network. We'll have all the links as well in our show notes, Jocelyn. And to all the folks that you're helping and to yourself and your family as well, continued blessings and you know best wishes in helping people flourish into the next chapter as you gather together. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we invite our daughter up?
Oh, yes, I'd love that. I would like to just quickly say that I'm all about sharing and serving. And if you are listening to this right now and you think I've just had a new FND diagnosis, or I've been struggling for 20 years without support with an FND diagnosis or another challenging health condition, it doesn't matter what it is. If you would like to find that community of unwavering support, please feel free. My email is jocelyn@jocelynbystrom.com. It's really easy. If you look up Thrive Together Network, you'll find us on all the social media. And we're just waiting for you to imagine stepping back into your joyful life I've just created this new practical resource guide called Thrive Through Challenges, and I offer it free online. So if you check out my website, you'll see where you can get the free download, and it's just practical tools to get you started on your way to being ready. You're ready now. Choose to help yourself and just use some tools that are simple and easy to use right now, right away.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that gift to all the folks listening. And I hope that it reaches all the folks that need to hear that. That's my wish for this call, because I know there are people out there who are in that quiet desperation. So thank you for being a voice and shining your light so brightly, Jocelyn. I know you're going to make big waves in our world to help gather the people that need it. So really pleasure having you on the show.
Thank
Appreciate
you
your
so much.
gifts
It's
and
an
your
honor.
mission. Yeah, thank you.
I'm honored.
Well, with that, I'm just going to invite our daughter Luciana to say thanks for watching, and for all those listening, blessings to you and your families, and
Yeah.
look forward to seeing you again. Okay, have a
Keep you
wonderful
strong and
day.
healthy and well.
Yes, thank you so much, Jocelyn. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.